welcome to this week's episode of Opera and Me. I'm your host, Robert Mellon. This week, my guest is Bobby Brubaker. Now, Bobby has sung at some of the most incredible opera houses in the world, including the Metropolitan Opera, New York City Opera, San Francisco Opera, La Scala, and Covent Garden. For us in Maine, Bobby's first production was in 1996, where he sang Pinkerton in Madama Butterfly. Then he followed that up with a performance of Cavaradossi in Tosca. Back then, Opera Maine was known as the Portland Opera Repertory Theater. Fast forward to 2010, he did The Witch in Hansel and Gretel. At that time, Opera Maine was known as Port Opera. Then he returned to Opera Maine in 2018 as Basilio in Le Nozze di Figaro. This interview was extremely enjoyable and super fun for me. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. This is wonderful. We've got Bobby Brubaker on the program. Bobby, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So, Bobby, you are somebody who got into Port Opera when it was still Port Opera, now it's Opera Maine, back in 1996 with Madama Butterfly, and then the following season you did Tosca, where you were Cavaradossi. In those early years of Opera Maine, do you remember anything that stands out to you?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that really stood out to me in the Butterfly production. Donna managed to get, or the designer, they managed to put real grass on the stage, like outside my beautiful little, cabana with all the sliding doors and everything, which were fantastic because, during the opening of the opera, I could be sliding the doors and checking out the house, but the floor was grass, real, stuff you go, they brought it in and rolled it out. It was great. We were on grass. It was amazing.
It was basically a brand new company back then. Did you know much about it, or was it your connection to Donna at that time that brought you up there?
Well, it was my connection to Donna. We had done Butterfly together down in Gainesville, Florida, at the university there. I'm not sure if it ended up being a university production, but anyway, she asked me to come down there to Gainesville, and we did a Butterfly there, and then we had a great time together. And so then she asked me to come up to Maine. And that was when we were doing I was still in the older theater.
Was that the State Theater then?
Yes. I think that would be the State Theater.
Yeah. So you've seen Opera Maine kind of grow over the years, because after your 1997 production of Tosca, you then returned in 2010 to do The Witch in Hansel and Gretel. And then after doing The Witch and Hansel and Gretel, you then came back in 2018 to do Basilio in Le Nozze di Figaro. Let's rewind back to that 2010 production as The Witch. You received a fantastic Opera News review that I want to read to you right now. And I want to talk about this production because apparently you were drop dead in this. The quote is, "Best of all, though, was the Witch, Robert Brubaker, who, even when taking flight, opted for an eminently musical performance that neither devolved into Sprechstimme nor avoided the role's inherent fun." Tell me about this role, and is it one of those things that you do that always kind of stands out as a highlight because it's such a unique role?
Well, The Witch is a great fun role. It's fun because a guy does it. It's kind of in the tradition of the British pantomime. I don't know if you're aware of British pantomime, but there's this tradition in Britain called pantomime, and men take on the female roles. And the history of British pantomime also goes all the way back to Italian commedia dell'arte. So The Witch is a little bit like, and I'm imagining, even though for all the research I've done, because I tried to figure out at what point, because it's not specified in the score for a tenor to do this. It's specified for a mezzo. But I'm imagining that this somehow came about out of an idea based on the panto dame. I just did it in San Francisco. That was also kind of traditional in the sense it was, both those costumes were a little bit, kind of Bavarian, kind of just sweet little old ladyish. And then, of course, you make the transition into a variety of things. In San Francisco, I ended up transitioning into rubber gloves with claws and a lab coat, a white lab coat. In New York at the Met, that was just this neighborhood, this local, but very kind of, 1970s neighborhood, extremely overfed lady, with the pearls and the black sleeveless. There I had rubber arms and, with droopy arms and everything. Closest thing that I can come to it, it's like the panto dame in the British tradition. And for me personally, when you dress up and as a woman or whatever, it's just another prop. It's not, somebody asked me, is it weird to go out there and dress like a woman or to put on a bra or something? I said, no, these are just props. It's just what you do. It's, it's what the role calls for.
You had a fly in this production. What was it like being in the air?
It was exciting and scary all at the same time because the flight took, I finished the singing, ran off, they hooked me up, and we had this system of double checks to make sure I was hooked, because otherwise you don't want to be dangling on one wire. And then I was flown. The first night went great. The second night was a little scary because the house had a peaked roof on it. And the second night they flew me a little bit low and I almost turned into a real mezzo, never mind. So that was a little scary.
I don't doubt it. That sounds pretty terrifying. And
Donna, by the way, Donna was the only director that actually flew me.
Really? Oh, all right. She gets full credit for putting your life at risk.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. No, the setup was done by Foy, the well-known Foy company. They came in and set it up. I mean, the local stagehands did the actual flying, but they were trained by Foy, and my harness was created by Foy, and I felt very safe, even if it was scary.
So my mad love makes red into gingerbread. My butterfly. Hey, hey, hey,
career has been pretty remarkable when you look at it, because you started as a baritone chorister with New York City Opera. And then from there, you make your Met debut as Zorn in Die Meistersinger. You are Chairman Mao in Nixon in China. You do Zemlinsky's Der Zwerg to rather good reviews to a tough Italian crowd. You then do Herod in Salome at La Scala. Then you do Bacchus in Ariadne auf Naxos at Covent Garden. Obviously, I mean, when you started singing, you trained as a baritone, and then suddenly you find yourself into these very dramatic tenor roles. Is that a transition that happened quickly for you? How did you find those roles, and how did you find that voice?
My transition to tenor happened, I believe, while I was doing a national tour with the New York City Opera National Touring Company when it was in existence. I was playing in Bohème, I was playing Benoit and Altindoro. But sometimes in the dressing room, people would carry on and goof around, and in the hotel rooms we would goof around. And sometimes, we'd play the game, anything you can sing, I can sing higher, because they already kind of knew that I had high notes as a baritone. I never actually did the role, but one of my signature baritone audition pieces was the Largo al Factotum with lots of high A's. So my friends challenged me. I could sing really high, but then of course, you know, you have to figure it out. So then I came home and I tried to do the Carmina Burana, which has where the baritone is supposed to sing in falsetto. I couldn't really sing in falsetto. It was so strange. So that spring moved all the season connected through the summer. So I finished my summer season at the New York City Opera as a baritone soloist. But that winter I started studying tenor. And then I came back in the spring and auditioned for the education department and got started as a tenor. I sang for 2 years, both baritone and tenor. Weird, very strange. And then finally, after the second year, I said to Beverly, we have to make a decision. So then she asked me to do 2 performances of Beppe, which really wasn't right for my voice. But she said, if you can sing Beppe, then we're gonna like focus you on being a tenor, which I succeeded. I sang Beppe a full step sharp, but it was okay. I think I was so nervous. But anyway, we all agreed, and she gave me John Beeson at New York City Opera. But the whole transition took about, to really make the transition and finish it, it took 4 to 5 years.
You've done so many roles. The array of roles that you have done have gone from comedy to serious to borderline psycho, depending on what, you know, person you were playing. How do you prep for these roles? Because these roles are so different, and on a month-to-month basis, you could be playing the most lovable, laughable, funny guy to the most maniacal, evil, devilish human being. How do you let go of the past and jump into a completely different role fresh?
Well, there's an old acting joke of this little old 75-year-old man comes into an audition for Shakespeare, and he launches into To Be or Not to Be. He finishes I won't attempt to do all the accents, but anyway, the old joke is that he finishes the audition and the people at the table are just agog. They're speechless. And finally, the director, I mean, looking at this shriveled up little old man, he said, how did you do that? And the little old man who happened to be doing it said, that's acting. It's not that simple, but in a way it is that simple. You know, as actors, I call it honesty. Back when I was young, I read a lot of different books. I didn't have so many acting classes, but in my younger years at City Opera and so forth, you know, I read the Stanislavski books, I read things, and I'm not so much a method actor, is that I just try to be honest inside the script, and I try not to I remember when I was a young singer, I would watch all these people come in to performance and they'd say, this is my Rodolfo, or this is how I do this, and this is how I do that. They would pre-decide, they would have decided, this is who Rodolfo is, this is who Cavaradossi is, this is who Marcello is. This is the way this is my Marcello. Whereas I thought early on, we should all get together like the Broadway actors do and develop each cast in response to each other, which leads me to the next idea of acting, is that we aren't really actors if we're honest about it. If we're doing it honestly, we're reactors. So for me, acting is actually reacting to what the other character says to me. And reading the play doesn't always help you, because many times the librettist turns it around. Like, you read the book for Traviata, but the whole point of view of the book is from Alfredo's point of view. Verdi turned it completely around and wrote the opera from Violetta's point of view. You know, and there's different research for different stuff. Chairman Mao, of course, is kind of obvious. This is a historical period, a historical character. We all know about him. Biographies have been written about him. So I read 3 different biographies. I can't say at that point there was a lot of video to study. You know, you study, you pick up whatever you can. Like, so that was reading books, you know, but a lot of it's just thinking about what the librettist has written and just trying to live inside that script and not making any decisions before you get there. Sometimes directors are frustrated because they think you're just like not acting. And that's not the point. You're working. you're piecing together that line, that those layers, those many layers. All of us have layers as human beings. You're piecing together all those layers. And sometimes I was really successful, and sometimes I'd finish the entire show and think, Jesus, I haven't even scratched the surface of this character. I hope I get to do this again so I can get more, because sometimes just listening and performing and being inside of it, I didn't get as far as I wanted to get, but that's life.
You have gotten to a point in your career now where one would think you've done it all. And now you're going to embark on a third change in repertoire as you look at character tenor. Now, a lot of people will kind of just throw the character tenor off and not think much of it, but it plays a very vital role in all operas, as we saw in your Basilio in Maine back in 2018. The importance of the character tenor. What is it? And your transition to these roles. Is it difficult? Is it easy? Do you find it rewarding? Do you find it exciting?
I've always felt that the character roles are the foundation of the performance. If the character roles around the star roles, around the leading roles, are weak, the audience may not focus on it, but they will be unsatisfied. The evening will be an unsatisfying evening. So the character roles and the ensemble qualities that they bring to a performance, to any production, is for me of ultimate importance and always has been. The transition is nothing for me because I started in character work. So in a way, it's just coming back to where I started. It's just completing this beautiful arc in my life. And I adore character work. I think it's many times, okay, it has different challenges. You're concentrating much more on, it's another part of that layering thing. You're concentrating much more on delivering a character, on delivering a character. I mean, whether it's funny, but I mean, so frequently character roles do create a little bit the comedy. Like the sacristan in Tosca it's this little relief. It's this little comedic relief of this otherwise extremely serious opera, which is a role I would love to do, even though I'm a tenor. I know I could do it. I could fake it. Just like years ago when I used to fake being a deep baritone and I'd sing Benoit and Alcindoro. So that's it. I mean, the transition is easy. I'm just going back to my roots. My roots were in character work as a baritone.
Well, Bobby, on behalf of Opera Maine, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me today to chat a little bit. And just so you know, they absolutely can't get enough of you up there. And I'm sure they can't wait for you to get back up to Maine.
Well, we would love to come back. And I love my wife and I, Jean Barber. We love Maine and we love that company. I'm so impressed with what they've accomplished and what they all accomplished. It's a great city. Portland's a great place. And we love Donna.
Thank you again, Bobby, and I hope to see you soon.
And that'll do it again this week. Another great interview. Thank you, Bobby Brubaker, for joining me. Join us next week when I have Anna Mandina and Simone Harcum on as we discuss what it's like to have been studio artists here with Opera Maine. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Opera Maine. To play us out this week is the famous first act trio from Le Nozze di Figaro featuring Bobby Brubaker, Keith Fares, and Maeve Hoagland. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you when I see you.
Scacciate il segno